Story 1. A few weeks ago, I was at a company picnic with alcohol, and a coworker who has always been interested in me attempted to get me to come home with her. In a drunken state, I did go home with her. As I sat on her couch, I realized I didn't want to be there or do that. I texted my friend to have him call me with an emergency situation. He called and said, "Yo man, I'm done taking care of your 4 dogs. They are all going nuts. Get back here." Mind you, I don't have any dogs, so why he said 4 dogs, I don't know. But it put me in a weird position. Long story short, I told her my dogs were going nuts and I had to leave. Now I've had to come up with photos of 4 random dogs because she asks about them at work now. Thanks to my friend for getting me out of this situation, but no thanks for the repercussions. Having a friend help always works. Just make sure their emergency isn't one that forces an ongoing lie. Story 2. Straight up, I'm not feeling a connection. Let me clarify. This is what I would say to someone. To me, it is about connection. I want to feel a fiery passion for which I want to spend hours being intimate or cuddling. My point is to be honest and upfront. Don't waste people's time. She obviously wasted yours with her lies. You aren't being rude in telling her like it is. Maybe people in the LGBTQ+ community are more casual about it. Story 3. Bring up politics and watch the sparks fly? No, I usually bring the topic to my hobby, history, and then proceed to bore her with stories about the Romans. Then she'll feel that she decided not to follow up and no one has hurt feelings. Story 4. Make the entire date short, be civil, and leave when you can. No need to be rude, but it's not like you're required to go out again. This is why first dates need to be simple. They can end right away or can turn into more if there's chemistry. Story 5. It's a case-by-case situation. If the person seems harmless, I'd probably stick around and chat with them over coffee. Maybe try to figure out why they did it and set them straight, or at least end on a good, if not slightly awkward, note. If your gut tells you something feels deeply wrong with the situation, you are not obligated to stay. You don't owe them anything. You can just make up an excuse for why you have to leave and then block or delete them. Your first responsibility is to yourself. Story 6. Depends on the deception. If you saw pictures of an obviously different person, you have no obligation to stay or be polite. If you saw pictures and it just turns out they are unattractive in person, a good photo taker, then politely have fun and finish the date. Either way, ensure a first date is simple but open-ended in case you end up having fun and want to continue the date or cut it short. Story 7. Women on the dating subreddits don't want to hear this, but this is the exact reason why on a first date, I just want to buy you a $2 coffee or a $3 beer at a dive bar and that's it. They will say, "This is so lazy," but it's my way of not wasting too much money or effort. The best way to do it is to make it known the first date is a short one. After you find out she's not what you were hoping for, you can simply say, "Thank you for your time. I need to get going." Story 8. I think it depends on the severity of the lies. If she's used obvious Photoshop to change her overall appearance to the point where she's borderline unrecognizable, then you're not obligated to be nice and respectful because she was disrespectful for lying. However, if there are just subtle differences you see now in person that you didn't catch in photos, then I think you should just do the bare minimum, cut the date short, and then tell her later that you're just not interested in another date. At least, from a female's perspective who has had these issues with guys on Tinder, this is my personal rulebook. Story 9. Sometimes people have zero concept of what they look like. They dissociate. I used to do this when I was heavy. I always had a nice face, and that's the part one put on dating sites. I was not being honest with myself, so I was incapable of posting honest pictures. I went on a few dates where the guy got very angry with me because he was emotionally and intellectually attracted to me but not physically. That hurt. I'd say the best way to approach it is direct but polite. "Hey, I don't feel the same spark in person that I felt when talking online. Thank you so much for meeting me, but I am just not feeling a romantic connection." It's not on you to make it about the lie. You're not her mom or her therapist. But don't waste either person's time if you know from step 1 you're not attracted. It's like a girl going on a date with a guy she's not attracted to because he guilt her and says, "I know I'm not your type, but I like you, so please touch me." Now, why placate people like that? It makes a hard situation potentially dangerous. Just respectfully make yourself clear and wish the person the best. Story 10. I was in this situation, didn't know how to get out, and now we are married. So, if someone could go ahead and get me the correct answer, that would be great. Story 11. Actually, I will tell you a story. A while back, I met someone that I had exchanged photos and texts with. The texts got very steamy, to be honest, and we had a great time. So, when we met in real life, I was surprised to see she was 30 pounds heavier than her picture. I was desperately looking for a way out at that point, but I couldn't figure out how to do it without being a complete jerk. So I just went ahead with the date. I had a blast with this girl, had a great time, and we were just as compatible in person as over text. Anyway, I found out she had some health issues, and that's why the weight gain. We dated and hooked up a bunch of times, and before I knew it, we were a thing. Her health issues got resolved, and she lost all the weight the next year. It's been 2 years, and we are still together and planning on moving in this summer. Sometimes, I think about the fact that I almost bailed on her on the first face-to-face meeting, and I feel so lucky I couldn't figure out a way to do it. So yeah, this question on here triggered me, and I'd like to say to all other guys out there, sometimes it might be best to stick it out, you never know. I sure didn't. Story 12. This happened to me once before, and I'm ashamed to say that I was too much of a coward to call her out. We hung around for a few drinks and chatted. It wasn't an unpleasant evening, and we got on okay, but there was zero attraction. She looked 10 years older than her photos due to excessive face filters. I don't think it's always the case that they're directly lying. Can be more complicated than that. I think she was someone who always used filters for her face and probably believed she looked like that from repetition. Self-image can be a complicated situation. It's more a case of self-delusion than deceiving others. That was my take, anyway. I felt sorry for her rather than angry and wasn't going to be the one to break it to her. I think she'd have been devastated. Story 13. Everyone has something to offer. Whenever this has happened with me, I would at least try to have a good conversation. Sure, she might not have been what I expected, but they could still be a chill person to hang with for the hour or so. Afterwards, I tell them I wasn't feeling it, so no harm, no foul. Now, if she lied about her appearance and can't hold a conversation, then I'd probably just be like, hey, I'm really not feeling this. Thanks for your time. Story 14. Honestly, she probably needs to be told truthfully that if she wants to find someone to like her, she needs to be who she is, or she will never attract the right people. If people keep ghosting her and being polite, she can't keep blaming it on other things. Story 15. Have a drink or eat the meal or whatever and say, it was nice to meet you, but I just don't think the chemistry is there for a second date, or something along those lines. You guys who are going all scorched earth must be pretty young. You will see some of these women again as the wives of your friends or your wife's friends or the wives of work colleagues or whatever. It doesn't cost you a dime to be polite, even if they don't deserve it. Story 16. First date was a beer. We both agreed going in that if we didn't like what we saw, we'd finish the beer and say goodnight. She was over 300 pounds and had lied about it. I drank my beer, shook her hand, and left right out of there. Easy peasy. Story 17. Treat them as a fallible human being, have a brief conversation, finish your drink, and say, it was nice meeting you. If they try to make plans afterward through text or whatever application, you can time them out by saying you're busy this week, be upfront and say there was no spark and good luck, or just block them. It is not up to you to enforce your morality on a stranger. You lie just like the rest of us. Story 18. Excuse yourself, go to the bar, pay the tab for both your drinks, go back and tell her, thank you, but I don't think this will work out. I paid for your drink. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Then leave and block her on the dating app. Dating is complicated enough and too much of a time investment to spend any of it on people who are not going to get the basic things right. Story 19. Woman here, but preventive measures. Ask them to take a picture for you when you're talking or suggest chatting on FaceTime for a few minutes. I've had a couple of guys say they've been tricked before and ask for a picture on the spot. Your mileage may vary, but I don't feel offended when guys do this. More so flattered they think I'm that pretty. If she gets upset, I'd say it is likely she is hiding something. Otherwise, all the tips about keeping the first date short and casual are good precautions to take. Even if they do look like their pictures, your personalities might not mesh. Story 20. I think there's nothing wrong with a line like, "You know what? Thank you, but I just don't feel the connection, and I don't want to waste anyone's time. I don't think we're right for each other." No need to go into specifics about why, as in she tricked you or whatnot. If she asks why you don't feel anything or what it is about her, just say you don't feel the connection. You don't know why and can't be more specific because it's a vibe thing, not something you can pinpoint about her like her looks, personality, politics, or anything. Now, that might be a lie, as you said it was because of her lying about her appearance, but you don't have to explain the specific part of someone you don't like, as that's just asking for them to get defensive. Instead, everyone knows what it's like when you just don't mesh. It's nothing deeper than that. There's no explanation. You just don't mesh, that's it, and that's all you have to explain. Story 21. I have a tone that I call professionally blunt. It sounds like a school principal talking to a student who messed up. But the infraction isn't that severe. It was nice to meet you, but I don't see this going any further. You misled me about your appearance before we even met. I find that a difficult foundation to build a relationship upon. Professionally blunt is a great thing to use because it's impossible to argue with. You say the very obvious thing in a way that lets the other person know that they messed up. Story 22. Finish the date. Most dates that I have been on have lasted an hour or two at most. So instead of being awkward and crushing that other person's confidence, just talk and have a good time without trying to do anything physical. It's only an hour or two of your life. Besides, this person might turn out to be someone who can be a friend to you. Then, a few days later, just tell them your reason over text, whatever it may be. Story 23. This happened 2 days ago to me. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she would be a nice person and we could have a laugh, but she wasn't, so I proceeded to get drunk and talk copious amounts of rubbish for a laugh. All in all, I had fun. Story 24. Dude, it's too late for that. Your first date should be something you're happy to do alone or with a potentially off-putting stranger that isn't too long or expensive, but still fun and worthwhile. Then you can finish the date by checking teeth or kicking tires and go home happy, or elaborate and continue the date. This is why short meals like tapas or meeting for ice cream are good for such a date. Worst case scenario, it's an ice cream cone. Buy her ice cream, be a gentleman, be polite, and go home with valuable knowledge. Story 25. I wouldn't tell her she's unattractive or anything, but I'd do her a favor and near the end of the date kindly explain that for her sake, she won't get far lying about her looks to potential dates, and I'd tell her she's not my type. Story 26. Be upfront and tell her. This sounds harsh to say, and it might seem like useless advice, but just be civil about it and learn from it. They need to understand that what they did isn't cool either. Story 27. I would just stay on the date. If they are unattractive, they are unattractive. Don't go on another date, but they are not necessarily a bad person. Just hang out for a bit, then leave like normal and don't go on a second date if they were offensively unattractive. Story 28. I feel like you should confront her a bit and tell her that she does not look like what you were expecting, and tell her to stop using deceptive images regarding her appearance so the situation does not end up happening again. Tell her that maybe someone else might like how she looks, but you were not interested because you were trying to meet up with the girl that she used as her profile or posed as. Story 29. Oof. This happened to me last month when I met a girl who lived 3 hours away from my city by train. She was completely different in real life than how she was in pictures, and I felt not just completely disappointed, but also ripped off, because I had great expectations and we were getting very emotional through our messages. I took some distance and we spent the whole day sharing stories and having a good time, but it was inherently clear that we were just going to be friends. At the end of the date, I gave her a little kiss because I knew that was going to be the last time we were going to meet, and that was it. We have barely spoken since then. Story 30. My rule on dates with anyone I haven't seen in person already is that I only have a half hour or 40 minutes tops this week, but I'd love to meet. And then if it's going really well, I let them know that I actually have more time. It's also why I always insist I pay for myself unless I hope for a second date. I still ask the waiter for split checks initially just in case. Both parties' time is valuable, so if it's not going well by a half hour in, it's polite to leave anyway, in my opinion. Story 31. Roll with it. Don't be a jerk. Treat her with respect and like any other woman you go on a date with. If you are new to dating, learn to relax and just be yourself. You aren't trying to get her into bed, so there is no need to try all that nonsense. Consider it practice for when you do want to advance. Do whatever the two of you agreed upon, and when you are done, thank her and either leave it at that or add, "I'm looking for a love connection, and I just didn't feel it with you, sorry." But always be polite because you never know who her friends are, and if you're a jerk, it could hurt you in the future.